This is part 2 of our story Volcanoes. I'm starting on page 16, paragraph 8. Volcanoes can be found on land and along the ocean floor. Volcanic eruptions on land can create mountains or form craters that become lakes. Volcanic eruptions underwater may cause a sea or lake to boil. Deep sea eruptions can also form islands over time. Some volcanoes are dormant, or sleeping. That means they haven't erupted for a long time. Others are extinct and will never erupt again. Volcanoes that are erupting now or have erupted in recent times, such as Vesuvius or Fogo, are referred to as active volcanoes. Today, Earth has about 1,500 active volcanoes on dry land. Another 10,000 volcanoes can be found along the ocean floor. Most volcanic activity happens along the boundary of the Pacific Plate. Scientists call this circle beneath the Pacific Ocean the Ring of Fire. It is the most active because the Pacific Plate is huge. When it collides with other plates, the edges of the other plates buckle and compress. The result is a higher rate of earthquakes and volcanoes. So the Ring of Fire is in the center of the Pacific Ocean on the boundary of the Pacific Plate, and that's where lots of earthquakes and volcanoes happen. Crater lakes. On the island of Flores in Indonesia, a volcano has created 3 crater lakes that change colors. The lakes can appear green, blue, black, or red, depending on the release of underground gases. Ooh, that would be super interesting to see. Famous eruptions. So this is a street in Pompeii. If you remember from my last video, I have been there before in Italy. I have seen Mount Vesuvius, and I have walked the streets of Pompeii. It is very, very interesting there because a lot of it is preserved due to the ash falling from the volcano onto the city. So it kind of made like a shell around the city to preserve it and make it last up until today. It is a very sad place because you know how many people perished there and lost their lives. But it's amazing how the volcanic ash preserved this history or made this history last for us to visit and see today. It has taught scientists a lot about volcanoes as well. So let's learn more about this famous eruption. The most famous volcanic eruption in history occurred at Mount Vesuvius in Italy in 79 CE Pompeii, and 2 neighboring towns were wiped out within a few hours. As many as 16,000 people are believed to have died in their homes and were buried under layers of rock and ash. The eruption sealed the region as if in a time capsule for more than 1,700 years. It wasn't until the 18th century that archaeologists uncovered the lost cities again. They found people and their pets preserved in white, ashy casts. Also preserved were the remains of their homes, fountains, and a theater. Even the fresco paintings decorating some of the walls were preserved. We have learned much more about this ancient time from uncovering Pompeii than we have from other cities that aged normally. So I actually have seen all that. The pictures that you will see in this paper book will show some people covered in ash. It is very eerie. You can see the position in which they died. Like I said, you can see the remains of their homes. You can see some of the paintings. You can see their artwork. And it taught, so many people about our past and what happened. But it's a very, very interesting place to be. Paragraph 13. Most rocks that erupt from Vesuvius are andesite, a type of volcanic rock that creates explosive eruptions. This makes Vesuvius an especially dangerous and unpredictable volcano. According to a geologist at the Field Museum in Chicago, when those kinds of volcanoes erupt, they tend to erupt explosively. The huge explosions create columns of gas, ash, and rock that can rise dozens of kilometers into the atmosphere. The kind of eruption that occurred on Mount Vesuvius was described as Plinian. named for Pliny the Elder, a Roman nobleman who died as a result of the 79 CE. Remember, that's the time, so we are in 2020 CE. Volcanic eruption. More recently, another Plinian eruption occurred in the Philippines. Mount Pinatubo had not had any major activity for 500 years, but in the spring of 1991, there were major eruptions and earthquakes. Scientists took these as signs that Mount Pinatubo, I'm going to call my grandma who lives in the Philippines and ask her how to pronounce that. I'm sorry, guys, I'm just guessing. Scientists took the signs that this volcano might erupt. So the government ordered an evacuation of about 66,000 people. Then on June 15th, Mount Pinatubo did erupt. More than 850 people died. The death toll would have been much higher without an evacuation plan. Plinian eruptions. A Plinian eruption takes its name from Pliny the Elder, a Roman nobleman and historian who died during the 79 CE eruption of Mount Vesuvius. His nephew, Pliny the Younger, wrote the only surviving description of the blast. And we're actually going to be reading that in the next couple of readings, so I'm really excited to read that with you all. It's fascinating to hear a first-hand account of this horrific volcanic eruption. From one of the mountaintops across the bay, Pliny the Younger noticed a cloud of unusual size and appearance. He compared the cloud shape to that of a pine tree, for it rose to a great height on a sort of trunk and then split off into branches. This cloud was actually a poisonous column of gas mixed with thousands of tons of rock and ash blasting out of the volcano's chamber. Living in volcanic regions. Paragraph 15. When volcanoes do erupt, they can swiftly destroy habitats, towns, and their inhabitants. They can change the landscape, knocking down trees and moving land. They can create avalanches and mud flows, which can be devastating. Eruptions have turned daylight skies to night. Some effects of volcanoes can be far-reaching. Volcanic ash clouds can affect global weather patterns. Scientists will continue to study volcanoes and their effects. In the meantime, cities near some volcanoes are improving their evacuation plans and teaching volcano safety. Some are banning new construction in hazardous areas. New satellite technology allows scientists to monitor and measure plate shifts and volcanic activity from outer space. This could allow scientists to better predict volcanic eruptions in the future.